All right, today we're talking about two-step inequalities. Our learning goal is I can write and solve two-step inequalities. So I want you to complete the warm-up and then check your answers with mine. So we have to divide by 2 on both sides on the first one, and that gives us x is less than -6. On the second one, we have to divide by a -2, and because of that, our sign of our inequality flips. And therefore they are not the same. This one wants everything below -6, and this one wants everything above -6. Same thing is happening down here. We divide by -3, and that gives us a positive 6. And so we have y is greater than 6, so we have an open circle at 6 because it doesn't have a line under it, and we want everything above 6. So we have learned that when there's an equal sign, we draw a line down the center. And then we have to start with addition or subtraction. So we have subtractions. We're going to add to both sides. And you'll notice one's a positive and one's a negative, so it's like we subtract. So we get a -16 is equal to 4x. Now we're going to divide by 4 on both sides. X cancels, and we have x equals -4, because 16 divided by -4, or 16 divided by 4 is -4. On the second one, we start with addition or subtraction, so same thing. We're going to add to both sides because we're subtracting 4. And we get a positive 12 equals our w divided by 2. We have to do the opposite, so we're going to multiply by 2 on both sides. It cancels out my 2, and I get w is equal to 24. You can solve inequalities the same way that you solve equations. And we use the inverse to do this. So just like we did the equations, we are going to draw a line down the inequality, and we are going to start with the inverse of subtraction, because right now we have -4. So we are going to add 4 to both sides. And we get 15. Bring down what we haven't used yet because these canceled. So now we're going to divide by -5 because that's the opposite or the inverse of multiplying by 5. We get x is greater than or equal to 3. So since there's a greater than or equal to sign, it is going to be a closed circle. Sorry. And it is going to the right because we want everything above 3. So closed circle above 3. Same thing, we're going to draw a line. Right now we are adding 4 to both sides, so the opposite would be to subtract 4. Bring down what we have not used yet. This is now gone. We are dividing by -3, so the opposite would be to multiply by -3. And we ended up multiplying by a negative on both sides. And so just like in our warm-up, it cancels it out, but it's going to flip our inequality, be the opposite of what it was. We have a greater than sign, so that is an open circle because there's not a line underneath it. And it is going to go to the right because we want all the numbers bigger than -27. So again, we want it to go this way. So I want you to try 1 and 2, and then check your answers with mine. So we are subtracting 7, so the opposite is to add 7 to both sides. And that gives me 12. And then we have 6 times y. So to get rid of the 6, we are going to divide by 6 on both sides. And that gives me y is greater than 2. That is an open circle at 2 going to the right because we want all the numbers bigger than 2. On the second problem, we have a positive 4. So we have to do a -4. So we're going to subtract 4 from both sides to get rid of it. And that leaves us with -3. D is greater than 15. we are going to divide by a -3. When we divide by a negative on both sides, it flips my inequality to the opposite direction. And so now I want everything less than -5, so I'm going to go to the left, and it's going to be an open circle. Let's do number 3, and then you'll check your answer with mine. So we have w divided by -4 plus 8 is greater than 9. Since we are adding 8 to both sides, we are going to do the opposite, which is subtract 8 from both sides. And then we have w divided by -4 is greater than 1. We have to multiply by -4 on both sides. And when we do that, it flips my inequality. And so that gives me w is less than -4. So I have -4. It is going to be an open circle, and we are going to go to the left. All right, example 2. So first we need to distribute, which is just like the ice cream that we talked about earlier this chapter, how we're going to take this -7 and multiply it through my parentheses. So -7 times x is -7x. -7 times +3 is -21. Is less than or equal to 28. That -7 only goes to the things inside the parentheses. It doesn't go to anything else. So now I'm going to do what we just did above, and I'm going to add 21 to both sides because we're subtracting 21. We always start with addition or subtraction. So we're on step 2. And that's going to cancel out my 21s. And I have -7x is less than or equal to 49. Now I have to divide by a -7 on both sides to get rid of that -7. And when I divide by a negative on both sides, that is going to flip my inequality to the opposite direction. So I get -7. So x is greater than or equal to -7. So because it's a greater than or equal to sign, I know it's going to be a closed circle. And since it's a greater than or equal to sign, I also know it's going to go to the left. Oh, sorry, it's going to go to the right. So I want a circle that is a closed circle going to the right. So I know that it is not going to be this one, and it's not going to be this one. And I know that it had to be a -7, so it has to be B. All right, example 2. Again, I'm going to distribute through the parentheses. So -6 times g is -6g. -6 times a -4 gives me a +24. And that -6 does not cross that line. We cannot go to the 12. It only goes to things inside the parentheses that it's next to. So now I have to undo the addition by subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 24 on both sides. I'm going to get a -12. So now I'm multiplying -6 times g. So to get rid of that, I'm going to divide by a -6 and those cancel. So it just leaves me with g. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm going to get a +2. -12 divided by -6 is a +2. But because I divided by a negative on both sides, we know that that is actually going to flip my inequality. So I know that g is greater than 2, so I'm going to be a +2. On my graph, I know that since there's not a line underneath my inequality, that it's an open circle, and it's a greater than sign, so I am going to go to the right, so that way it's all the numbers bigger than 2. So I want you to try 2, and I want you to try 6. And then check your answers with mine. Right, on number 4, we multiply 2 times k, and we get 2k. 2 times -5 gives us -10. To get rid of that -10, we're going to add 10 to both sides. And that gives us just a 2k on this side. And then 16, because 10 plus 6 is 16. We're going to divide by 2 on both sides because we're multiplying by 2 on the left. and 16 divided by 2 is 8, so I have k is less than 8. That's an open circle at 8 going to the left. Number 6, we are taking the we are taking the 0.5 through the parentheses, so we have 0.5 times 8, which gives us a 4. 0.5 times y gives us a 0.5y. We have a positive 4, so we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. And that leaves us with just our 0.5y on that right-hand side. So since we're multiplying 0.5 times y, we have to divide by 0.5 on both sides. And we get negative 3.5 is less than y. So when I graph this, I need to make sure my y is on the left, or else it's going to go in the wrong direction. When I switch my y to be on the left, do you see how the opening of my inequality is facing the y? My opening of my inequality also needs to be facing the y, so it's going to flip my sign. So I have y is greater than negative 3. And so, sorry, that should be negative. I'm going to have a closed circle going to the right. All right, the football team orders sweatshirts. The price per sweatshirt decreases 5 cents for each sweatshirt that is ordered. How many sweatshirts should the team order for the price per sweatshirt to be no greater than $32.50? So we know that we want it to be no more than $32.50. So that's going to be, I need it to be less than all of that or equal to it. If you look at the sweatshirt, it says that it is $40 for one sweatshirt. So the price of my sweatshirt, or the original price, is $40, and I'm going to subtract the price decrease, which was 5 cents, times however many sweatshirts that we buy. So I'm going to do S. And now we just draw our line. And we solve it. So we're going to subtract 40 from both sides. And then we have to divide by that negative 0.5s. So I'm going to divide by 0.5 and negative 0.5 on both sides. That cancels, and I have s is less than, not less than. It has to be greater than or equal to, because we divided by a negative on both sides, so it flips that inequality. So we get 15 sweatshirts. So S has to be bigger than 15 sweatshirts. So they have to order exactly 15 or more than 15. All right, I want you to start your homework, and we're going to check the notes next class. This is for a grade.